In this lesson, we'll learn how to work with text inside of Photoshop. Okay, great. So this is the Lesson 36 Begin file, and I want to just introduce you to the tools and panels you'll be using if you're working with type here inside of Photoshop. So let's say that for this particular image, we want to add some text to this sign here. So obviously this is a sign that says Fallout Shelter, but maybe we want to add just the text that says closed down here below that, kind of in this area underneath. So now to do this, we're going to grab the horizontal type tool. It's right over here, and it simply looks like a giant T in your tool panel. So if we tap on this, there are some different iterations of this tool. You can see there's a vertical type tool, and then there's a horizontal type mask tool and a vertical type mask tool. But for this lesson, we're just going to be using the horizontal type tool. So let's go ahead and grab that. So what you should understand about type here inside of Photoshop is first that there's a couple of different ways we can create it. We can create what's known as point type, or we can create what's known as area type. So point type is simply created if we just tap on our canvas. You'll see that we get this text insertion cursor here. A new type layer has been created in the layers panel. But if we type now, let's just type, I'm just going to hold down a letter on my keyboard, maybe the D key. You can see that we can type an infinite number of characters on a single line here inside of Photoshop. Now again, this is point type, and typically I don't work with point type. Let's just go ahead and delete this layer. I like to have a little bit more control over the space that my type can occupy. So to do that, let's say we want it just in this area right down here. Now, instead of just tapping, we can tap and drag and draw what's known as the area for our type, or a text box, if you will. So if I release at this point, you'll see here that we have this little dashed outline around our text box, or our area. And we have these little transform controls around the corners and the sides. So for this, let's just go ahead and type the word closed. And you can see that I'm typing this at a very large point size. Obviously, if your text is not visible, then you may need to increase the point size here. So now we can actually select the entire word here simply by double clicking it, just like so. Now at this point, I'm going to choose to come up here and choose a typeface. So we'll just come up here and drop down this list. And again, this really doesn't matter. You can choose whatever typeface that you want. I'm going to choose this one called Crass right here. And you can see that in choosing that, I had my type set at 360 points in terms of size. Well, all of it doesn't fit within this area. You can see that I've cut off the letter D. So I need to be aware of that, and we can just come over here and maybe grab this side transform control and drag that out. There we go. Just like so. Now, I want you to pay attention. There's a real subtle change that happened to this box around our type. If you look and observe this bottom right-hand corner, there's a little plus in it right now, right around here. That indicates to me that this box contains what's known as overset type. It means there's more type than this box can hold. So if I drag this to the right so that we can see that letter D, you'll notice that that little plus sign goes away. So that's a really subtle thing that is something you should be on the lookout for if you're creating area type inside of Photoshop, and especially if you're working with larger amounts of type. So now with this type in place, I can come in and begin to kind of rotate it around, just like so, kind of rotate the baseline that the type is sitting on. I can grab this box, and again, I can kind of control how the space it sits in actually sits. So we'll just come in and rotate that around. Maybe we set it like that. We can actually bounce up here to our move tool and kind of reposition it that way as well. Now if we want to quickly get back to our horizontal type tool, the keyboard shortcut for that is T, just like the letter on the icon there. So and now we can actually come in and click inside that box, just like so. And you can see those transform controls become available to us again here. Now, just as a heads up, these transform controls don't work like the transform controls when we're doing, say, a free transform. If we grab this corner and begin to scale this box up, it's not affecting the type. It's only affecting the box that the type sits in. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of grab that and move that down. Now, again, we have some limited type controls up here inside our control panel. If we wanted to change the typeface, we would need to select all the type and come in here and make that change. We can affect the size. The anti-aliasing method, which right now is currently at sharp, but we have a number of different anti-aliasing methods. Now, we're not going to necessarily get into that. More than likely, whatever project you're working on in terms of its output is going to determine what type of anti-aliasing you choose. So you can see we even have some limited paragraph controls here. So if we wanted to left align, center align, or right align our type, we could do that right here. Now, we also need to know that Photoshop has some panels that are dedicated to working with type, and we can get to those simply by clicking on this button right here. There we go. This is going to open our character and our paragraph panel, just like so. Now, these are also available to us right up here under character and paragraph right there. But again, you can access them very quickly by grabbing this button right up here. So now let's say that we wanted to change the color of this type. Maybe we make it sort of a deep red color. So I can tap on this little box right here and access my color picker right from the character panel. We can also access the character color right up here. But we do want to make sure that we have our type selected when we're doing this. So we have something selected that we're going to change the color of. So I'll come in here and maybe just change that color to something like that. And maybe we want to actually change the blend mode for our type layer over here. And I'll just change that over in the layer panel to something like multiply. And then we can come over and kind of maybe brighten that up just a little bit. I want to make that look like it's as integrated as possible on that sign right there. Now again, they're basically looking at these character and paragraph panels, a lot more different type-specific options available to us. Again, point size, we have things like leading and tracking. We have things like bold, italics, things of that nature down here. We can even begin to adjust the horizontal and the vertical scale of our type right over in this area, as well as shift the baseline of specific characters. Maybe we wanted to come in and shift that baseline -2 points. Shift this baseline here. Let's go up about 5 points. So we can begin to do things like that and really sort of start to customize our type. I'm actually going to go a little bit further. Let's go -6 with that. We'll go up maybe 10 points with that. Kind of undulate the baseline. So those letters look like they're really not aligned perfectly. So again, character-specific options here. Paragraph-specific options over here. So here we have things like our alignment options. We have some padding options that we can create either on the left or the right sides of our paragraph. We can control our first line indent as well as spacing above and below a specific paragraph. So if you're working with larger bodies of copy inside Photoshop, more than likely you probably will be using another application for that, but that's where you control all of the paragraph settings. All right, great. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and just spend a little bit more time here. I'm going to go ahead and create a mask. Grab my brush tool, and let's just select some brushes here. Let's actually come over to our brush panel so we can see the stroke. I'd like to mask out some of this information of this text and basically create a bit of a distressed look to it to further integrate it. So I could come over, maybe turn on my scattering attribute, come over, turn on shape dynamics, and you can see my angle jitter is turned up. That's what I was going for. I'm not going to adjust any of the other dynamics there, but I am going to come in and space this out just a little bit. So we get kind of this type of a dirty pattern. So I can come in now at this point with my mask selected, and let's go ahead and increase the size of my brush by Alt-right clicking and dragging. And I'll just come in and begin to kind of paint into my mask and just basically beat up my type a little bit. Now we could do this with this particular brush. We could come in and do this with really any of the brushes. Obviously, this is really not a type-specific type of action I'm showing you at this point. But if we really wanted to make this type look like it was integrated into this image a bit better, I would probably consider masking out some of it and just kind of beating it up, because this is a fairly old sign. So we might even come in and adjust the opacity of our layer here just a little bit, and maybe just move that over some. All right, fantastic. So in this lesson, we've learned how to work with type here inside of Photoshop. We've learned how to control the character settings as well as the paragraph settings for the type that we create. Now at this point, we're going to be moving into a portion of this course where we look at a few of the filters that are available in Photoshop. So in the next lesson, we'll take a look at how we can do something simple like blur an image.